Evan Cole, back at you, PM head of cloud management solutions here at Supermicro. So we're continuing our podcast on cloud A initiatives, or our software, full software stack that we are building for vertical integration within our platforms. The AI revolution and the AI infrastructure is booming. And so we're providing a software portfolio that's going to be important for you as you continue to build out your AI infrastructure. So, before we dig into the detail of navigating around the console here of the cockpit, which we'll talk about in a minute, and then getting into the command line interface, I just wanted to backtrack here just for a moment. So, in the previous video, we laid out for you our proposed demo center where customers are going to come in and evaluate. So we built four shards, four developer consoles that are going to import those Kubernetes compute. We showed you the relationship there between the control plane and the compute plane. And then how later we'll navigate around the control plane or the developer console GUI itself and give you much more information of how we're instantiating VMs and instantiating containers. But you have to lay the foundation first, right? And build your backhaul storage pool and various other pre-flight work you need to do prior to actually installing the Kubernetes control plane within your SuperCloud Developer Console. So I'm going to dig into detail of that and really focus on a couple of things there for pre-flight stuff, and then we'll get into subsequent videos where we're going to talk about navigating around the control plane. So the first thing I want to mention is when you're building this out, the first thing you need to do is take a look at what's my storage? Where am I going to store these virtual machines, these developer consoles within my hypervisor? So we've installed CentOS 10 on an AMD platform. And what we've done is we've instantiated four shards or four control plane SuperCloud developer consoles within that KVM hypervisor. So we talked about maybe you don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket there and put all those virtual machines on one KVM hypervisor. Maybe you want to split them across. So that's something you want to think about when you're deploying in your enterprise. So the first thing I want to mention is, which is very, very important, is the aspect of storing your virtual machines, which are going to be your developer consoles or virtual machines we're talking about in KVM hypervisor, in an NVMe drive pool. That is very, very important, especially for SCC when you deploy it, SuperCloud Composer, and Developer Console, right? If you're using your cold storage to store your QCOW images in a SAS or SATA drive, that's bad news bears, right? Because they're not fast enough, and Kubernetes is very temperamental about basically storing endpoints and then also instantiating VMs, especially in your KVM hypervisor when you're dealing with SAS or SATA drives. So read the documentation, do your homework, and use your QCOW image storage for virtual machine images, and then you can use your SAS or SATA drives, the clunky ones, for your OS repo area or where you're going to store your ISOs when you instantiate those VMs, right? Itself. Okay, and we'll get into looking at this nifty tool called Cockpit, which is new under CentOS 10. It sort of replaces Virtual Machine Manager and you having to set up an RDP. Those are all deprecated under CentOS 10. And no longer do you have to fool around with script files, that makes my life really, really happy, right? When I don't have to go in and fat finger things in a script file and potentially this idea of column a column that you set up in your script files, right? And they have to be in a certain column, and otherwise it kicks out when you essentially run the scripts. All right, so NVMe drives store your QCOW images, and we'll look at Cockpit and how we see that a little bit later. The next thing I want to point out is the storage pool. Where are you going to basically store your virtual media or your endpoints when you instantiate containers and also virtual machines through a Kubefert plugin that we offer in SuperCloud Developer Console. And so we built a large pool of NVMe drives in, like you can do it in a DC Cloud or a Hyper platform, or some of our great storage devices where you can have front IO, or like plugging these drives into the front base, and then essentially making sure that those have all been configured under an operating system. They all are mounted correctly, making sure you go through and use the UUID as a mount point for your BLK all of that needs to be set up first, right? And configuring an NFS server, which is the 172.24.199.22. And we'll show you that where we actually do the mount points, because we, as in the developer consoles on this side, are the clients. So where is this information stored? It's stored in FS tab. So if we type in FS tab here, you can see here that our developer console itself is stored here with FS tab information. And so again, we're looking at, again, just the KVM hypervisor, right? Where we've stored this information, we have the UUID, right? So we've set up this pool to store our QCOW images and our OS repo. And typically you want to make, you can issue the command BLKID and make sure that you point it to the UID, because when you boot, sometimes the sequence doesn't line up properly, and then you get into the situation where you go into maintenance mode and then you have to go fix things, right? So use the UUID, the BLKID command to get that UUID, and then put them inside your FS tab location. All right. Okay. So next, what we want to do here is go in, let's log into this Cockpit, right, which is this new utility nifty tool I find very helpful. And it deprecates the RDP, right, and it deprecates Virtual Machine Manager, right? So we're going to log in as root. So by default, root is not enabled for security regions. So probably not a good idea to use root within your enterprise. Best practices is that you create an account and then sudo su to turn on super user mode. We're in a controlled environment here of a lab, so it's fine. It's more convenient for us than having to sudo su and things of that nature. So again, depending on your security posturing and what you deploy within your environment. So we have an AMD platform here under system information, some nifty details. We can look at viewing a lot of the various hardware information, the type of CPU itself, the BIOS date, and so on and so forth. So some nifty information here shows you all the bridges for PCIe, so on and so forth, right? So pretty cool stuff. And let's go back to overview. And then if you wanted to change the name, host name, you can do so here by putting the real host name in. We call it KVM DevConsole 01. So we're on the hypervisor. And navigating around looking at this nifty tool now, which is Cockpit. All right. So the next thing what I like is the networking piece of this. So if you have played with Network Manager, you know it's a nuisance. You fight with it every day, try to configure the bridges, and then it conflicts with what you're putting as an IP address for the interface. And then when you have to put VLANs on the interface, and then when you have to apply it to the bridge, it's a mess with that product. It used to drive me bonkers, right? So this is a great tool, right? Because one click and away I go, right? So I can add the bridge here. I just simply click one of the interfaces and presto, my bridge is created and my virtual machines are ready to rock and roll, right? And connecting out to the network, right? So I find it very, very useful. This is a cool feature. And I'm in with this tool. You can see here transmitting, receiving to as well. Um, and then you can add in, bonds if you wanted to do any type of bonding of creating redundancy with your NICs. You can add in VLANs. You can associate it with the bridge or an interface, and then it creates. In this case, you would change the VLAN ID for tagging and do all the 802.1q trunking and things like that. For our example, we're simply configured as PVID 672. It's an access port, so no need to look into the gobbledygook of VLAN tagging and things like that, and then going up to our upstream switch and tagging and .1Q trunking and things like that. So we kept it simple, right? So we have a bridge configuration here, and here's our IP address, 172.24.199.93. We're seeing network traffic there, so all is good. And you can look at network logs here if you want. There's our network manager playing around with different things within our environment, right? Okay, so that is basically the bridge. So we'll quickly look at the storage here and get down into the brass tacks here. So again, our NVMe drives are being utilized to store our QCOM images for our 4 shards or developer consoles, right? Don't put them as the SAS or SATA drives. And then we use the OS repo area to store our ISOs for cold storage, right? For our media. Okay. So, and then we got writing and things going on there too as well and reading. So we're all good there. And then let's look at the virtual machines themselves, right? So virtual machines that we created, there's 4, right? North, south, east, and west, just like you saw in the PowerPoint slide I provided in this earlier podcast. So you can get into different geo regions if you want to do Europe or Asia Pac or South America or North America, your choice on what you want to do there. And so we've done that. And then we are going to look quickly at storage pools. Here's our repo section with our storage volumes, where our operating systems are with the size there. You can create additional repos by going in and creating a volume here. So incidentally, we'll get into all of this when we're installing SuperCloud Developer Console in another video presentation, right? So look out for that. We'll go in through nuts and bolts of taking it from a virtual machine right through the steps of deploying your SuperCloud Developer Console and getting access into the GUI. Okay, so that is our storage pools from a standpoint of the OS repo. So let's look at our storage pools that we have. So we have DevConsole north, south, east, and west. We've carved out 600 GB of space, and we're utilizing 55 plus GB space of that 600. And we have storage pools for each developer console for east, west, north, south, and west. So if you created additional VMs, make sure you carve out enough space for that QCOW image to expand and then whatever bits that you put in that drive, that virtual drive, gets exposed within your environment as a storage pool. All right. So that's the virtual machines, the networking here. If you want to do creating a virtual network, we're not doing so. And then let's just quickly get into the North console. Here, if you make any changes itself, on the next reboot, those changes will take effect. Remember, under Virtual Machine Manager, you had that little light bulb, and you couldn't make any changes to the parameters or configuration file within the VM until you shut down the VM. So they made some big improvements here, which I like. In this toolkit they offer, saving me time. I don't have to go through create my virtual pools through command line interface, so on and so forth. All right, I can shut down different types of things. I can migrate. I can do all kinds of different cool things with this GUI. And let's get into the graphical or the console. So we can log in here and do root. And we can log in here. Oops. Would help if I ended up saving or typing the password correctly. So let's clear it here. And you can issue any command in there that you want here, showing container information, so on and so forth. What I don't like about this, which is a little bit frustrating, is when you go outside the window and you use the up and down here. Sometimes I have to say to myself, okay, Kevin, where am I? Am I in the window or outside the window? And so I basically are frustrated sometimes of like, why is it not typing anything? Where am I, right? On my mouse, right? So I guess I got to play a lot more solitaire to get control of the mouse and stuff like that. But anyways, um, here we are. We've got the command line here within our console, and then you can come up to compress here and then get out of it and do any other looking you want to look at from the standpoint of your platform. So that in a nutshell is basically the cockpit. You have to install it, deprecates uh, the RDP and also Virtual Machine Manager, and so I'm happy. I'm happy with this. I get a thumbs up, right, for this tool set. It saves a lot of time for me. So that concludes the navigation of the cockpit and talking about storage pools and preparing your pre-flight check for basically getting into the nitty-gritty of the developer console and getting into the control plane. Thanks for joining today. We'll see you on the other side. Have a great day.